Yes, you could also get us on WhatsApp as well. The team, David and Darcy, are standing by 0300 123 1001, or check us out on Facebook, as you heard there. You can find us by simply searching BBC Radio Foyle. Now, the family of a young Derry woman who died earlier this year from skin cancer say they want to tell her story in the hope that it might save others. Fiona Brady was a much-loved daughter, sister, partner and friend to so many, and she was just 36 when she died in January of this year. Now, her family say had she been screened earlier, she could still be alive, and they want to raise awareness because May is Skin Cancer and Melanoma Awareness Month. I'm joined now by Fiona's partner, Gary Devenney. Good afternoon, Gary.
Good afternoon, how are you?
I'm well, Gary. I wish we were speaking under different circumstances, but I know that you and the family want to do this in Fiona's memory and to raise awareness so that anybody who is listening today might go and get themselves checked out. But I was reading up about Fiona, and I was looking at all the pictures, and I said there she was so loved by so many. Tell me a wee bit more about her.
She was so many circles of friends. She was such a vibrant person, someone who had so much zest and love for life, that it was phenomenal when you met her. You just kind of felt that straight off her. She had a fantastic work ethic. She never missed a day of work, even towards the diagnosis of her cancer later on. I think there was still in her head the idea that she was going to return back to work. So a very determined, very resilient person, and just loved by every person that she ever met.
Now, Fiona's story with cancer, it sort of predates when you met her. She was very young when she had her first diagnosis back in 2014. Just tell me how that happened.
Yeah, so about 2014, Fiona noticed there was a mole on her stomach, and after several visits to the doctors, she was referred to the skin clinic at Galvin. Where she was advised to keep an eye on it for the changing of colour or changing of shape. But after that, there was kind of no follow-up. Sort of in between 2016, 2018, she then started to notice these changes getting more regular, and then went back to the doctors in 2018, and it was then they done more tests. She was red flagged, and they found out that it was skin cancer.
That was in 2016, was it?
2018.
2018?
Yeah.
Right. And then that was successfully removed by surgery?
It was, along with lymph nodes, left a 12-inch scar on her left side of her stomach.
That's, getting a diagnosis at any age, presumably can have such an impact. How did Fiona deal with that at the time?
I think she's, if you know Fiona, she was such a resilient person. She got on with things. There was, no matter what was put in her way, she done what she had to do to get through it. I guess from the family's perspective, obviously it was quite an emotional time, and the support that she had from the family as well. And Fiona was back at work quickly after the surgery. Mm-hmm. As I said before, that was kind of her nature, the way she got through things. She got her head down and she worked through.
And was she given the all clear at that time?
So in October, so she was visually seen. So she had the surgery, she had the lymph node removed and the mole removed. And then for 3 years later, twice a year she was checked, but the checks were only ever visual checks. And
that's standard, isn't it, Gary?
I believe so.
Right.
And then after that, so she was diagnosed as a cancer patient, or told essentially she was cancer-free on October 2021. And I guess from that perspective, we're asking, could there have been scans done? Could there have been other preventive measures put in place rather than just being discharged at that point?
I know this is very much Fiona's story, and I know that you're speaking from a personal point of view. We have approached the Western Trust, obviously, to give right of reply, and we'll bring that to you when we get it. But when was it then that Fiona started to feel unwell again?
It would have been around the start of June last year. So she started to feel tired on a daily basis. We kind of put that down to work, because she worked for Next, and in the summertime at Next, and I'm sure you're aware it's pretty busy, so she's always working, and we thought maybe the tiredness was something to do with that. But then she got what we thought was a frozen shoulder, that she had laid on it difficultly. She couldn't raise her elbow above her shoulder, and it was quite painful. So with that, with the tiredness, she was starting to get maybe a wee bit lack of sleep because of the tiredness the soreness in her shoulder. She went to the doctor, and then after describing all of her aches and pains to the doctor, by that stage she had a bit of pain in the bottom of her back as well, her lower left-hand side, and she talked to the doctor, told her what those symptoms were, physically in tears in the doctor's surgery because of what she was saying, and she was told that she likely had sciatica, and she was given painkillers and to take the painkillers and go to an NHS physio appointment, which she then followed up with about a week later.
Mm-hmm.
And at that physio appointment, the conclusion from the physio was that Fiona hadn't exercised enough, and he had suggested that she should possibly do a couch to 5K to get her more active. And if you knew Fiona took the doctor's appointment to the letter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if the doctor told her to do something, she done it. And when she came home from that appointment to the NHS physio, we talked about getting a bike. She said, I'm going to get a bike. I need to exercise more.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived in Strathfoyle, and the White Horse is just down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about going swimming together.
Right.
So Fiona would have taken on, whatever advice was given by the doctor was what Fiona would take on. And I guess at that point, and retrospectively, you're looking back, and all of these symptoms she was having was on her left-hand side, and that was where she had the cancer previous. And obviously, if you had a crystal ball, maybe you'd go back and change things, but it's just the questions in terms of how coincidental it could have been that all of them symptoms were on the same side as she previously had cancer and was never picked up.
When was she eventually diagnosed, Gary?
So that would have been in June. In the August, she started to get really, really sore pain in the bottom of her pelvis and her left femur. We were in Sorrento in Italy in the late of August. First 3 days she was struggling. The last 4 days she was essentially bedbound. The pain was horrendous for her. We then came back from holidays. We went to a private physio because at this stage we were still thinking it was sciatica because that's what the doctor had previously told her. So we took her to your physio in Grey Steel, and the physio in there was fantastic. He said there's too many red flags for me to look at. He wrote her a letter and told her to go directly to A&E in Altnagalvin, and if not Altnagalvin, go to Belfast because you need to get seen tonight. Mm-hmm. So we knew then things weren't as were worse than what sciatica could possibly have been. She went to A&E, sat for 11 hours and told that she was going to get scanned. She didn't get scanned. She got blood tests done and then sent away after 11 hours. About 2 days later then, she got an appointment to go in and get scanned. And when she did get that scan done, Fiona was sitting at her dad's. We visited her dad's after that appointment, and she got a phone call. And that phone call was someone from the hospital talking in third person about Fiona. And when Fiona corrected them, they hung up. And the person on the phone, word for word, was that there were abnormalities at the base of the spine. So Fiona rung that number back up again, and it was a radiographer, and he admitted that he thought he was speaking to Fiona's doctor and apologised to Fiona because she shouldn't have got the information that way. So they went to a doctor appointment a week after. I think it was around the 15th of September was when she got the diagnosis that it was cancer.
I mean, an incredibly difficult process for you all. I am, minded to say at this particular juncture that we have approached the Western Trust. We only got in touch with you, Gary, just shortly before we come on air, so we appreciate that in terms of getting back to us, the Western Trust may need a little bit more time, but I'm sure that they would say that everything was done in good faith. That doesn't alleviate your pain or Fiona's suffering at this particular juncture. But I mean, I'm sure that diagnosis was a hammer blow.
Yeah, it was. We were in the room with the doctor at the time, myself, Fiona, and her mother, and I think the silence was the worst of it because nobody knew what to say. Fiona obviously had cancer before and thought that she had beat it, and we came in to that appointment because it was in the area where they look at sort of bones, as orthopedics they call that. Mm-hmm. Because it was in that area, we were thinking, it may just be something to do with her spine or something to do with her hip, because not at that point we didn't really know anything else, and then we get hit with the cancer, so it was very, very difficult. And to be fair to Fiona, as I said to you previously, she she didn't bat an eyelid at it, really. She said, well, something else that we have to fight, really. That was her attitude to it.
Where do you think that sort of resilience came from? Is that just the type of person Fiona was?
Yeah, she was. She didn't let much get her down in that respect. Had a very, very strong work ethic through her working career, and I think that's what the mentality that she had throughout her life in that moment. And I guess because it was coming so quickly, no one really knew what to say. Yeah.
Treatment wasn't at that stage. Treatment wasn't an option. Was it pain management at that stage?
At that stage, we weren't aware of what the treatment options could possibly be. They had to do a few biopsies to figure out, first of all, and confirm that it was melanoma, and then figure out what type of treatment could possibly Fiona could get on. So she had an appointment with the Belfast Cancer Centre on Monday, the 18th or 16th of September. Might have been 18th of September. However, unfortunately, the week before that, she started to get a lot of breathing difficulties, and she was taken into hospital on the 15th of September with over 7 litres of fluid being drained from her lungs. And at the time, the doctor said to us, listen, it's not lung cancer, and the cancer is in the lining of the lungs, but this is what's causing the fluid. And it was on that Sunday, so that would have been Sunday the 17th, we were told that it was terminal. So she knew she had cancer on the 5th and then went into hospital the 15th, and it was Sunday the 17th we were told that it was terminal. Things
progressed pretty quickly after that?
They did. Because of her condition at that moment in time, the original plan was to put Fiona on immunotherapy, but because of the fluid in her lungs and because of how ill she was at that moment, immunotherapy wouldn't have been an option, so they had to skip right to the last available option, which was targeted therapy.
And what is that, Gary?
So targeted therapy is a form of chemotherapy, but it's on tablet form.
Right.
So there was, off memory, there was 9 tablets that Fiona took in the morning and then 3 tablets in the evening. So they had to be equally spaced 12 hours apart. And to be fair, once Fiona got out of hospital on the 22nd of September, October and November, the treatment really kicked in because she had little skin lesions and she had little lumps that you could feel with your hand. One was on her chest plate, and they had all disappeared, apart from one that was on her shoulder, her right shoulder, until the day she passed. It never really went anywhere, but all of the rest of them did, and all of the differences in the skin colour, that were little bruises, had all cleared up, and she lived a really good life. October, November, she was out partying, having fun, seeing her friends, and had a real life in that respect. And then, unfortunately, towards the end of November, pain started to get a little bit worse, the bottom of her back. And that's, I guess, where we kind of knew things were getting worse, really. She had real bad pain at the base of her spine and her her upper left leg, and that was causing her to have sleepless nights, and she wasn't really getting a lot of rest. And the pain then, I think it might have been around the last week in November, she had an appointment with the Belfast Cancer Centre with her oncologist. She had an appointment in the morning, and then she had an appointment in the evening to get an injection that was going to help with the strengthening her bones, because we knew by that stage that the cancer was in her bones at the bottom of her back. The unfortunate thing about that story was that the appointment was in the morning and the injection was at 6 o'clock at night, so we had a space of about 6 hours. Fiona ended up sleeping in the back of my car until the appointment was due for her injection that evening. And when we went for the appointment, Fiona didn't get an injection until 7 o'clock because the doctors had told us at that time they'd missed Fiona's name off the list. So that was a lot for her to take in that day, pain-wise, and obviously all the waiting as well.
Fiona passed in January, Gary?
Fiona passed on the 29th of January at 12:04.
Was she at home?
She passed away in Galvin in Ward 50.
Were you all there? I don't want to, obviously this is hugely emotional. Where do you get your strength to talk like this, Gary?
Fiona, knowing that her name is still on the lips of everyone who speaks, knowing that her pictures are still being passed around on social media. Fiona always had this little thing that in social media, she used to get off me when we were on holidays because I would put a post up and she would tell me, that's not a story, that's a post. You get more interactions in a story than you do a post. So she knew social media and she knew what interactions would, what post would get what interaction. And I guess
She kept you right.
seeing the interaction that her story has got, the amount of people that have gone in contact with me, with her sister, with friends, through social media, telling us their story about their partner or their family member. A person I went to tech with nearly 20 years ago, hadn't spoke to about 15 years, got in contact with me, telling me he's in a very similar situation. So it just encourages people to speak up, and seeing the power of that. And if we can use that beautiful smile of Fiona's to do that, I think that's a really beneficial thing.
This is Melanoma Awareness Month, am I right? And that sort of fueled your desire to come out and Fiona's wider family to come out and tell her story. If there is someone listening today and thinking, something just doesn't feel right, or they've been neglecting or putting something off, or, what would you say to someone?
I would say get to the doctor as quick as you can, because nothing can be as embarrassing. You might think that it's just something that I don't want to show somebody, or I don't want another person to see. Trust me, it can't get embarrassing. And also keep pushing until you feel comfortable with the answer that you're being given. Almost don't take no for an answer. Keep going.
How are you doing, Gary? I know Roisin, Fiona's sister, has been helping you and the wider family spearhead this desire to raise awareness in Fiona's memory. How are you all doing?
Yeah, it's tough. It's very tough. If you go through grief, it's always there somewhere. So even if you think you're having a good day, you turn a corner and you see a picture of her, or you hear her voice or a video, then that's sends you off. But and back at work as well is been quite tough to. I think when you realise normality starting to creep in terms of work and how life was beforehand, it's very, very hard to accept.
I was chatting to someone recently who had lost someone very close to them, and you talk about that return to work, but they talked about almost being in a grief bubble with their nearest and dearest, and that kept you going. But it's when you have to sort of step back into the real world, I guess, that things hit home.
That's true. It's very true. It's almost, grief can stay away whilst your mind's busy, but as soon as you go through the door or into your bedroom or into your bed, and you have nothing else in your mind, it hits you with a ton of bricks.
But look, you're surrounded by good people and good friends, and you're, as you say, you're sort of fueled, you're driven to do this in Fiona's memory. Do you think you're living up to your expectations in terms of those Instagram posts, and do you think she'd be proud of you for doing this?
I hope so. She always had an idea of what the right picture looked like. We had to take about 3,000 pictures before we ever got the right one. So hopefully she is. Gary,
listen, thank you so much for being so stoic and being so open. Thank you for sharing Fiona's story, and I know your desire is to help other people. So I'm sure there's people here listening today that will be really amazed by what you're doing. And as you say, if it can help one person, then that's enough.